Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're going to talk to you about buying your first long-term rental. We're going to go through all the pros and cons. We'll talk about tenant selection and everything in between so that you can buy with confidence. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel. I'm Suzanne Moore.
And I'm Sarah Willis. We are Central Oregon's investment and real estate experts.
As I said, I'm Suzanne Moore. I'm a realtor here in beautiful Sunny Bend, Oregon with Realty One Group Discovery, and I'm the founder of the Central Oregon Investor Network, which brings together investors not only from Central Oregon, but all over the country to talk about real estate investing, share resources, and help each other create more freedom in our lives through passive income from real estate investments.
And I'm Sarah Willis, also a realtor here in beautiful, sunny Central Oregon. Suzanne Moore and I are a team here at Realty One Group, and we make these videos for you to learn more about investing. And we are here to help you buy and sell in Central Oregon when you're ready, and teach you what you need to know in order to do it. There is a QR code here on the screen. Please screenshot it, hold your phone up, and follow the link. You can sign up for our weekly emails where we scour the market and bring you Ben's best deals straight to your inbox, so you have what you need to purchase and sell when the time is right.
All right, let's get into buying your first long-term rental. All right, you've decided that now is the time to buy your first long-term rental and you're wondering where to start. So that is exactly what we're going to talk to you about. But first, before we get into that, we just want to talk about the pros and cons of investing in your first long-term rental. So I'm going to go through the pros here. The first great thing about long-term rentals is having the consistent income that comes in every month. Someone else is paying your mortgage. It's an amount that you can generally count on. Obviously, you have to account for things like vacancy, but you have a lease, it has a term, and you should be getting the same amount of money every single month. Management for long-term rentals is generally pretty easy. You set up the lease and it's done for a while. Tenants pay the utilities. This is another great advantage of long-term rentals compared to things like vacation rentals or even midterm rentals. So they pay utilities unless it's a multifamily property. That means a duplex, triplex, any more than one unit. Generally, tenants will put all the utilities in their own names, but with multifamily properties, you may still end up paying for water, sewer, and garbage, and those requirements differ by state, municipality, and just up to you on how you want to manage those things. The next thing is it is a clean slate. You do not have to decorate your long-term rental. You do not have to furnish it like you would if it was a short-term or midterm rental. Tax write-offs. If you have checked out our YouTube channel and seen our top 10 tax deductions for real estate investors, you know that there are great tax write-offs for being a real estate investor. And with long-term rentals, you get to write off depreciation, repairs, improvements, all those great things. So that goes for pretty much any real estate investment, but it's a great one for long-term rentals. And the last but not least, biggest pro for long-term rentals is lower management costs. So because there's less turnover, you pay less in management. It's easier and cheaper than a short-term rental.
On to the cons. With the good always comes the bad, right? So we've got tenant laws in Oregon that sometimes make it challenging or expensive to regain possession of your property. You can't just go kick people out anytime you want. Cash for keys is one option to get tenants out. Otherwise, you are generally stuck paying for relocation costs if you have to have a tenant leave without electing to. DIY landlording, it takes time. That's one of the other cons. Just you kind of have to judge time or money, right? You get the calls when you least expect them, and you have to deal with it. Also, third con here on our list is potential damage. No renter will take care of the home like you would. You have to just go in with that expectation and know that you are going to be cleaning up after other people's messes in between different renters.
So let's talk a little bit about DIY property management. And we want to just give you an idea of some of the different options and considerations of different ways of handling the management of your property. So with doing it yourself, you are in control. You get to make all the decisions and you get to screen your tenants. You get to create your own screening criteria and decide what is most important to you to look for in the right tenant for your property. Second thing about DIY landlording, you're saving money. You don't have to pay someone 8 to 12% of gross rents to manage the property for you. That also means that it's less passive. So we talk about passive income. If you're more actively involved, then it's less passive. The third DIY aspect is systems. So once you get a system down for screening your tenants, posting your rental, getting leases set up, it's really easy to replicate that for additional units and for tenant turnover. Learning. If you love learning, you will be great at DIY landlording because you get to learn all kinds of things. You get to learn how to fix stuff. You get to learn how to market your property. You get to learn how to interact with tenants and what to expect. And you can decide if you want to fix stuff or hire help. You'll also get to learn tenant laws, which Sarah just talked about, as well as tax impacts and savings for being a real estate investor. Last but not least is connection. And this is something that's really important to me is, some tenants are really cool. And when you're a DIY landlord, you get to meet them, get to know them as people. They know you as people. And that's important, especially when it comes to life situations. They know that you're a human and not some big, massive corporation. So personal connection goes a long way and can be really, really rewarding.
We talked about time versus money, and if time is more important to you, then you may consider using a property manager. Going this route, you typically have fewer worries, right? You can take off and not have to worry about getting that phone call you didn't expect in the middle of the night. There is no emotional involvement. If you are not necessarily a people person and connection is not as important to you, you don't ever have to meet your tenants. You just get a check every month. There is no skill needed if you use a property manager. Of course, we always encourage, tenant landlord laws wherever you are. But this is why you pay people to manage, is you let them be the experts and take care of it so you can focus on other things like possibly buying another property. Expert skills. They know the market rents, they know the tenant laws, they can deal with conflict management, the accounting, and eviction in the event that that's something that comes about. Finally, like we already mentioned, it's time versus money, right? This is the big thing. If your property has strong cash flow and you're not a control freak, you're not a type A, you might consider hiring a property manager.
So just to wrap that up quickly, one thing that I recommend is if you're just getting into your first long-term rental, try managing it yourself first so that then you know what you're paying for if you do hire a property manager. So moving on, we just want to talk quickly about market research. So if you are going to be a DIY landlord, how are you going to figure out what market rents are? And where do you post your listings? Well, we've got a couple of resources listed up here. One is Rentometer. There is a free and, of course, a paid option. You can get some data there that will help you gather rents in your area and gauge whether yours is high, low, or just right. You can also research on places like Zillow, Rents, and Craigslist. Those are also two platforms where you can post your rentals as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later.
Central Oregon is a big dog town. Okay, so we're going to talk about allowing pets in your rental units and the pros and cons, so you can help decide whether you would like to allow pets in your units or not. Pros. So obviously, you will have access to a larger renter pool. Lots of people have pets, and you'd be surprised, there are very few listings that allow them. something you want to incorporate if you do allow for pets is a pet damage deposit. You can collect an extra deposit to cover potential damage from pets, and this will keep you covered in the event that there are issues from your furry friends. You can charge more potentially, often just because someone has a pet. Obviously, they're not going to be moving into a place that doesn't allow them, and people are willing to pay more for places that will allow them to have their fur babies. References. You can always check references on the pet from previous landlords. That's just something to keep in mind. Restrictions. You can restrict by breed, animal age, weight, number, and types of animals allowed. Maybe, small pets are a better option, or cats, maybe potentially do a little bit less damage. So this is one place where you can be biased. Accommodation. Companion animals are not considered pets. So regardless of your policy, you need to keep in mind that if a pet is something that is someone more like of a service animal, this is something you cannot discriminate against.
All right, so now we know all the pros of allowing pets in your rentals, and now let's talk about some of the downsides of doing so. The obvious first one is, of course, damage, potential damage. Pets can cause some serious damage to a property, and that can require expensive repairs. There is also the animal odor or allergy considerations as well. So some people are really sensitive to pet odor, dander, and or are highly allergic to animals. So that might make it harder to rent in the future. Pet waste is another thing. Hopefully in your lease, you have very clearly spelled out the responsibilities of the pet owner regarding waste and taking care of their pet waste on the yard. But not all tenants are as responsible as you might hope, and not all of them clean up after their pets. So if you're out there mowing the lawn for them, just watch out for those little landmines. Last one is noise and neighbors. Some pets make noise, like dogs barking. So just something to keep in mind. It could be a nuisance to neighbors. Some pets can be bothersome to other tenants or neighbors. All right, moving on. Now it's time to talk about advertising your rental. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Just want to get into a couple of quick resources here to help you out since this is your first long-term rental. And the first resource for listing your rental is, you got to know the market rate for your rental. So we talked about Rentometer as being a great resource for that. But now you have to write your rental ad and post it so that you can get a tenant in there and start making money. Zillow is by far the easiest and broadest reaching tool to post your rental. Your first listing is generally free. They change the rules all the time, so I'm not going to give all the prices here, but generally it should be free. Sometimes they charge you. Many prospective tenants use the Zillow app and can even apply directly through Zillow. So, you can decide if you want to collect applications directly through Zillow or not. We have some insights on that. If you want those, give us a call. We'll happily share some thoughts on whether or not to use that functionality. And you can also create and manage leases within Zillow once you find a tenant. Second resource is Craigslist. In some municipalities, Craigslist rental postings are free. Sometimes they charge a nominal amount to post your listing. And that's really just to get, weed out the spam and all the scammy stuff that happens on Craigslist. So just something to be aware of. It can be kind of scammy, spammy. It's definitely a less slick interface than Zillow, but it's really easy to repost in the future if you already create a Craigslist account. Next one is Nextdoor. This is a neighborhood-based app or website that can be a great way to advertise your rental to your immediate community. It's also helpful to potentially vet the prospective tenant if they already live in the area, and maybe you can get some resources or references on them through Nextdoor. Last but not least, we've got apartments.com, and Essentially, apartments.com allows for you to post the rental, then you can manage leases within the platform. You can screen your tenants using apartments.com, and postings are free, and it's really easy to manage those leases.
Okay, you have posted your rental, and now it's time to find and keep great tenants. So consider, it may seem basic, may seem pretty straightforward, but kind gestures. Okay, guys, a little kindness goes a long way showing you're a human with your tenants. So you might want to consider a welcome gift, something like small from a local shop in town, little gifts, and something as simple as a card can go a long way. Flexibility. You're going to want to offer flexible lease durations that match your potential client's needs. You may be looking for a year-long tenant, but you haven't had a ton of applications and it's someone who just wants a 6-month lease. It's a good idea to work with your tenants if you think they're going to be good tenants and they just need a little bit of flexibility. They will appreciate it and they will reciprocate. Maintain the small stuff. Take care of maintenance requests as soon as possible or offer reimbursements to tenants if you trust them to take care of it themselves. Again, this is just another thing where a little goes a long way. The little things really do matter. Respect privacy. Always give ample and the required notice before entering the property. Here in Oregon, tenants require at least 24 hours. So this establishes trust and a mutual respect between you and your tenants.
All right, now on to leases and rental management. So you got a strong response to your well-written ad, you found some great tenants, and now you need a lease. So where do you go? A couple options here. One is Oregon specific, that is multifamily Northwest. Oregon specific rental forms are available from multifamily Northwest, and they comply with all of the updated laws and requirements. You can get digital forms, and this is an excellent local resource for DIY landlords. Next up is Stevens Ness Law Forms. There is a local Portland-based law firm that publishes all types of legal forms, including leases that comply with all the continual updates of tenant laws and requirements, and they have digital forms available as well. Next up is apartments.com. We cover this quickly. This is a great way to screen tenants and manage your rentals online for free. Tenants pay $30, I think 30, maybe $50 for screening. And once accepted, you can set up the lease in their system, and they allow for free online rent payments from the tenant's bank account to your bank account. So you don't have to be responsible for knowing their bank account information. Next up is Zillow Rental Manager. You can post your rentals, screen your tenants, have e-signed leases, collect rent online through Zillow. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, and that's the goal of Zillow, to really help out the DIY landlord. There may be some fees that apply, so just make sure you check that out.
All right, we are here to talk now about lease considerations. And one thing I will say is it's just really important. Communication is just really important. Setting up expectations through your lease and through your rules for these tenants will take you far. So in your expectations, you're going to want to clarify as much as possible, including things like we talked about before, like cleaning up pet waste, number of parking spaces, what you expect out of yard maintenance, where they can store things, whether you allow air conditioning units in the windows, who maintains the washer and dryer, cleaning expectations, so on and so forth. Write it out in the lease so there's no questions asked. Next up is painting. So a lot of tenants will want to make a place feel like their own, and painting is just a really easy, usually cost-effective way for them to do that. It's up to you whether you want to allow painting in your units. You just need to define that in your policy and stick to it. You may consider asking them to use a licensed painter or let them do it themselves. Maybe you let them do whatever they want, but then they're just required to repaint it back to white before they move out. Again, totally up to you. Just make it clear. Short-term rentals. Can people rent out your place when they're not using it and make money off of it themselves? Maybe you're going to allow for that, maybe you won't. But again, clarify, write it out in the lease. A lot of leases tend not to address this, and tenants get creative, right? And we just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and nobody is getting in trouble. Sublease. Again, sometimes tenants will want to sublease their home. Something happens in their life. They feel locked into their lease. They want to go on an extended vacation. They need to know whether you actually allow for this, or maybe you tell them that you consider it on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes if they want to do this, you can set up a fee, maybe like $300 if they want to do that. So everyone is protected. Example, damage costs. It can be really helpful if you include a list for your tenants of common damages and estimated costs for repair in your lease, so your tenants know upfront what their security deposits may be debited upon for move out, right? So you need to have their carpet cleaned because their cat or dog made a mess of it, or they put dings in the wall, or the blinds are damaged. It's just good to outline these things in your lease and give them an example of what this is going to cost them if this happens when they move out.
So now let's talk about move in. The lease is signed, your tenants are ready to move in, and now it's time to do the following. First one is take pictures and videos. You already have the listing photos, but before these folks move in, make sure you have videos of the interior of the house. Have detailed photos if you're not going to do videos. You're going to want to reference these at move out so that you can appropriately assess damages. Next one is the move-in inspection. Any good lease will include a move-in inspection form for the tenant to fill out, and they should note any existing damage on the form. Any new damage at move out then becomes the tenant's responsibility. You're also going to collect a security deposit and potentially a pet deposit at this point. Generally, you collect a security deposit equal to 1 month's rent. Different municipalities have different laws around how much you can charge, so make sure you know your tenant laws. And this is also the time that you would collect a pet deposit. So like I said, make sure you check the laws for how you need to deposit and maintain the security deposits as well. Key handover. This is exciting. This is when you give the tenants the keys, wish them well in their new home, and make sure to include keys for any storage areas, fences, gates, or mailboxes.
Now we're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Tenant is ready to move out. There's also a protocol you're going to want to consider. Tenants love living in the home, but they're ready to make a move. Here's what you will want to do. You always want to acknowledge notice. As soon as they let you know that they want to vacate, you need to write them back in writing that you acknowledge and clarify how much notice they're giving in their move out date. This will help you determine when to post your unit for rent again. You're going to need to do that move out inspection, right? You have the videos and the photos from what the house looked like before they moved in. You have the notes on what damage was already there. Now you're going to do it on the backside. You're going to walk through the house with or without them, compare damages to their move-in photos, and take record of what needs to be accounted for, if anything, in terms of taking money out of their deposit, and give them a very clear record as to why. Key handover on the backside. On move-out day, you're going to want to set a plan to get all the keys from your tenants as they depart. You also may want to consider changing locks in between tenants. Returning deposits, or just the deposit, depending on if they had a pet deposit or alternative deposit. You have 30 days in Oregon for move out to return their deposit, less any damages. And it's a good idea to provide security and a pet deposit accounting to your tenants when you refund the deposit, like we already talked about, so they know in the event that you're taking money from them, they have a very clear record and accounting as to why.
All right, we've given you a lot of information about how to do things, how to post your rental, get people moved in, get them moved out. And now I just want to talk about a couple of the common pitfalls that newer landlords experience. So the first one is accepting late payments. If you accept more than 2 late payments in a row, that sets a precedent and your due date automatically changes to that date. It could signal a bigger problem for your tenant and their finances that could then require eviction in the worst case. So we just suggest that you avoid accepting late payments. Another one is expecting too much. This happens a lot of times for landlords who used to live in the house and then they moved out and turned it into a rental. You have to let go of the emotional connection to what was your house, but now is the tenant's house. Tenants will never take care of the house the way you would, especially the yard. So just let that go. If it's important to you that the yard be maintained at your standards, then stipulate in the lease that the tenant pays for yard maintenance and you hire someone to make it look decent and live up to your expectations. Tenant screening. Make sure you screen every prospective tenant over the age of 18 that will live in the house. No exceptions. Doesn't matter if they're your friend, your family, anything. You want to make sure that you screen them because you will save yourself a lot of worry, a lot of headache, and you don't even have to pay for the screening. The tenants do it. So screen your tenants, call the references, and make sure that you're making the right decision based on the laws that are required in your area. Boilerplate leases. Don't use them. Do not Google free lease online and use it because it is not going to protect you. It's not going to protect the tenant. Spend the $20 to get an up-to-date lease that reflects the current laws of your area. Read it, please read it, and make sure that you can explain those terms to your tenants. You want to know what constitutes a violation of your lease so that you can then explain that to the tenant if it arises. Last but not least, you need to account for expenses. Things like vacancy. So when you work with Sarah and I on an investor analysis, we will calculate into your investor analysis an amount for vacancy. You have to plan for it because not every tenant move-in is going to happen when another tenant moves out. You're going to have some downtime and you want to plan for it, budget for repairs and maintenance every year. All right, we're wrapping up here. Just want to quickly run through a list of resources and tools for you as a new or DIY landlord. We already talked about Multifamily Northwest. These are great Oregon-specific rental forms that comply with local tenant laws. Apartments.com, this is what I use as a DIY landlord. It's a great way to post your rental, screen tenants, set up leases, collect rent. Super easy. It's free. Next one, Zillow Rental Manager. We talked about this. You can post your rental, screen your tenants, e-sign leases, collect rent online. It's that one-stop shop for you. And if you want to learn more about being a DIY landlord, check out Landlordology. They've got some great articles on there about being a landlord, some of the things we've talked about today, and maybe they go into a little bit more depth as well. And then last one is local landlording resources. Many areas have local networking groups or monthly landlord education classes. Sometimes they're offered by the city. Sometimes they're just groups of people that want to get together and talk about stuff. Sometimes there's even like free training. So spend some time researching in your area so that you can be educated and be a great landlord.
Now you know everything you need to know about getting into your first long-term rental, going through the process of finding your tenants, writing the leases, maintaining your tenants, and making sure you have the best turnover and protecting yourself as much as possible. What is next? What we talked about. You need to decide you want to be a real estate investor, and owning a long-term rental is a really great place to start, especially the single-family home. Multifamily units are a little bit of a step up, but also a really great first investment. Second step, find your realtors. You're here. Suzanne and I are here for you, as you can see. Third step, let's set up your search. Let's get in, let's do your deal analysis, and let's go. Number one, take that first step and decide.
Thank you all for joining us today for the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel, Buying Your First Long-Term Rental Class. It was great to meet with you all today, and we're excited to help you on your journey of becoming a landlord or real estate investor.
Again, snap that QR code, Give us your contact information. Get in touch with us when you're ready to buy or sell here in Central Oregon. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe this video, and we will see you here in Central Oregon next time.
Thanks, everyone.